In 1992, during the siege of Sarajevo, a man with a kilo of gold starved to death. He had wealth, real wealth, the kind people kill for, but he couldn't eat it, couldn't trade it, because in a city under siege, where supply lines are cut, where markets don't exist, where survival is measured in days, gold is just metal, heavy, useless, worthless. Meanwhile, 3 blocks away, a doctor was trading medical care for food. A plumber was exchanging water purification for shelter. A former soldier was providing security for a share of whatever his group could scavenge. These people had nothing before the war. No savings, no property, no gold, but they had skills. And skills ... in the collapse are the only currency that matters. This is the truth they don't want you to understand. When society breaks down, when the systems fail, when money becomes meaningless, there are only 3 skills that keep you alive. 3 capabilities that make you valuable. 3 forms of knowledge that separate survivors from corpses. Everything else ... Every other skill, every other expertise, every other specialization ... becomes irrelevant, dangerous, fatal. And here's what should terrify you. Most people don't have any of these 3 skills. Most people have spent their entire lives developing capabilities that only work inside functioning civilizations, that only have value when institutions exist, when supply chains operate, when law is enforced. Strip those away, and 90% of the population becomes instantly useless, instantly vulnerable, instantly dead. So what are these 3 skills? What capabilities have proven across every collapse in history ... to be worth more than any amount of gold, any stockpile of weapons, any hidden cache of supplies? Let me show you through the people who survived. The ones who lived while others died. The ones who thrived while civilizations burned. The first skill, the most fundamental, the one that separates life from death faster than any other, is food production. Not food storage, not food hoarding, food production. The ability to create calories from nothing, to grow food, to raise animals, to hunt, to fish, to forage, to transform dirt and water and seeds into nutrition. Because stored food runs out. Always. No matter how much you have, no matter how well you hide it, eventually ... it's gone. And when it's gone, you need to create more, or you die. Let me take you to Leningrad. 1941, the Nazis surround the city, 900 days of siege, the longest in modern history. 2 million civilians trapped, and the food runs out fast. Within months, the stored grain is gone. The warehouses are empty. People start eating pets, then leather, then wallpaper paste, then each other. Over 1 million people die. 1 million, not from bombs, from starvation in a modern city in the 20th century. But some survived. Not the wealthy, not the ones with gold, not the ones who hoarded food in the beginning. Because hoarded food attracts attention, attracts violence, attracts theft, and when it's gone, you're just another starving person with nothing left to trade. The ones who survived were the ones who could produce, the gardeners who knew how to grow food in winter, in basements using makeshift greenhouses, the fishermen who could cut holes in frozen lakes, the hunters who could trap rats and pigeons, the foragers who knew which tree bark was edible, which weeds could be eaten, which plants wouldn't kill you. These people had knowledge worth more than any amount of stored grain, because knowledge produces food continuously, sustainably. As long as you're alive, you can create calories, can feed yourself, can feed others, and in a siege ... the ability to feed others ... makes you invaluable, makes you protected, makes you survive. Now jump to Venezuela, 2015 to present. Not a siege, not a war, just economic collapse. Hyperinflation destroying the currency, supply chains breaking, supermarkets empty, and people starving in a country rich with oil, rich with resources, but unable to feed itself. Because Venezuela imported food depended on global markets, and when the money became worthless, the imports stopped, and hunger began. The urban population suffered most: office workers, teachers, engineers, people with valuable skills in a functioning society, but useless skills in collapse. They had no way to create food, no knowledge of agriculture, no experience with animals, no understanding of how to transform land into nutrition. So they starved, lost weight, became desperate. Some fled, many died, but the rural population, the farmers, the people everyone looked down on, they survived, they thrived, because they could grow food, raise chickens, keep goats. And suddenly, their skills were worth everything. City dwellers would trade cars for a sack of potatoes, gold jewelry for a dozen eggs, professional services for a chicken, because hunger doesn't negotiate. Hunger doesn't care about your credentials. Hunger only cares about calories. And the people who could produce calories ... owned the new economy. This is pattern. This is history. Every collapse follows the same progression. First, stored food is consumed. Then, stored food is traded at escalating prices. Then, stored food runs out. Then, people starve unless they know how to create food from basic resources, unless they have the skill that trumps everything. And here's what's crucial. Food production is knowledge intensive. It's not intuitive. You can't figure it out in crisis. Can't learn it from a book while you're starving. It requires experience, trial and error, understanding of seasons, of soil, of pests, of preservation, of dozens of variables that only experience teaches. The gardeners who survived Leningrad had decades of knowledge. The farmers who thrived in Venezuela ... had generations of accumulated wisdom. You can't replicate that in emergency. Can't shortcut it, can't fake it. So if you don't have food production skills, if you can't grow a garden, raise animals, hunt, fish, or forage, you're vulnerable. Completely vulnerable. Dependent on systems that will fail, dependent on supply chains that'll break, dependent on others to feed you, and dependence ... In a collapse ... is death. But food alone isn't enough. You can grow all the food in the world ... and still die. Because the second skill, the second capability that determines survival is medical knowledge. The ability to heal, to treat injury, to prevent infection, to manage disease. Because in a collapse, modern medicine disappears, hospitals close, pharmacies empty, doctors flee, and suddenly ... a simple cut becomes fatal. A broken bone becomes permanent disability. An infection becomes death. The medical miracles you take for granted ... vanish. And you're back to Dark Age medicine, where survival depends on someone knowing how to help. Let me show you what this looks like. Bosnia, 1992 to 95. The Yugoslav Wars, Sarajevo under siege, and a doctor named, let's call him MEHMED ... stayed. Most doctors left, fled to safe countries, to functioning hospitals, but Mem stayed in a basement clinic with no electricity, no running water, no medical supplies, operating with improvised tools, car batteries for power, moonshine for anesthesia, ordinary thread for sutures, and he saved hundreds of lives. Hundreds. People who would have died from wounds that modern hospitals treat routinely. But in siege conditions, with no resources, his knowledge was everything. His ability to improvise, to adapt, to remember techniques from before modern convenience. He became irreplaceable, protected by the entire neighborhood, fed when food was scarce, guarded when danger was constant, because medical knowledge in a collapse ... is priceless. Or look at Syria, 2011 to present civil war. Cities destroyed, medical infrastructure collapsed, and the doctors who stayed became more valuable than any commodity. They couldn't charge money. Money was worthless, but they were given food, shelter, protection, whatever they needed, because a doctor who can save your child, who can treat your injury, who can ease your pain, that person is worth more than gold, worth more than weapons, worth more than anything you own. But it's not just doctors, it's anyone with medical knowledge, field medics, nurses, veterinarians, even people with extensive first aid training, because most injuries and illnesses in a collapse don't require surgery. They require basic care, cleaning wounds, setting broken bones, managing fever, treating dehydration, delivering babies, things that modern medicine has made routine, but that kill without knowledge. During the Syrian civil war, a veterinarian in Aleppo became the de facto doctor for his neighborhood. He didn't have training in human medicine, but he knew anatomy, knew infection control, knew how to work with limited resources, and he saved lives, dozens of them. Children with shrapnel wounds, women in difficult labor, men with gunshot injuries, all treated by a vet, because knowledge transfers, because principles of healing are universal. Because in absence of specialists, a generalist who knows something is infinitely more valuable than an expert who knows nothing relevant. If you're starting to see the pattern, if you're realizing that the skills that matter in collapse are primal, essential, fundamental, then you need to understand the third skill, the one that determines not just survival, but who controls the aftermath. Hit subscribe, because this final skill is the most dangerous, the most powerful, and the most necessary, and it's the one they least want you to master, the third skill, the one that separates leaders from followers, protectors from victims, survivors from casualties, is organized violence. The ability to defend, to fight, to protect what's yours, to project force, to lead others in combat, to establish security in chaos, because in a collapse, law disappears. Police vanish, military fragments, and suddenly violence isn't monopolized by the state. It's distributed, democratized, available to anyone willing to use it, and the people who understand violence, who can organize it, who can wield it effectively, they become the new power structure. This is the uncomfortable truth, the part of collapse nobody wants to discuss. But history is unambiguous. When civilization breaks down, when institutions fail, violence fills the vacuum, always, without exception. And the people who survive aren't necessarily the most moral, the most educated, the most civilized. They're the ones who can fight, who can defend their families, who can organize others into effective defensive units, who understand that in absence of law, force is law. Look at Somalia, 1991. Government collapses, country fragments into clan territories, and warlords emerge. Not because they're elected, not because they're legitimate, because they can organize violence. They have fighters, weapons, the ability to protect territory, to enforce rules, to provide security in exchange for loyalty, and people follow them not out of idealism, out of necessity, because in a lawless environment, being part of a strong group is survival. Being alone is death. Or look at the Balkans. The Yugoslav wars, when the country dissolved, when ethnic tensions erupted, the people who survived were the ones in organized groups. Neighborhoods with former soldiers organizing defense, towns with militias, communities with leaders who understood tactics, because violence was everywhere. Random, brutal, and the only defense was organized counter-violence. Groups protecting their own fighting back, establishing safe zones through force. Killed, displaced, absorbed by stronger groups, or eliminated because collapse is tribal. It's collective. It's groups versus groups. And if you're not part of a strong group, you're prey. But here's what's crucial about this skill. It's not just about personal combat. It's not about being tough. It's about leadership, organization, the ability to unite people toward common defense, to establish rules, to maintain discipline, to project force effectively. This is why former military personnel are so valuable in collapses, not because they're better fighters individually, but because they understand the organization, chain of command, logistics, how to turn a mob into an effective unit, how to defend territory, how to project power. During the Syrian civil war, neighborhoods that had former military officers survived at much higher rates because those officers could organize defense, could train civilians, could establish watch systems, could coordinate response to threats. They became natural leaders, not through election, through competence, through the ability to provide security when official security vanished. And here's the darkest part. In a complete collapse, morality becomes flexible. The rules you live by now, the ethics you hold, they are luxuries of civilization when your children are starving, when your family is threatened, when it's survival or death. People do things they never imagined. They steal, they kill, they become predators because survival instinct overrides everything. And the people who understand this, who prepare for this, who accept that collapse changes the rules, they're the ones who survive. But this doesn't mean you become a monster. It means you become capable of violence when necessary, capable of defense, capable of protecting those you care about. Because in a collapse, pacifism is suicide, idealism is death. The only morality that matters is the morality of survival, and survival requires the ability to fight. So what does this mean practically? What does it mean to develop these three skills? How do you transform from vulnerable, civilized human to capable survivor for food production? You start now. Start a garden, not a hobby garden, a serious production garden. Learn what grows in your climate, what yields calories, potatoes, beans, squash, high calorie crops. Learn preservation, canning, drying, fermentation. Learn animal husbandry. Chickens are easy. Rabbits are efficient. Learn to hunt, to fish, to trap, to forage. These aren't weekend activities. These are survival skills that take years to develop. Start now. Practice constantly. Fail safely while failure isn't fatal for medical knowledge. Take real courses, wilderness, first aid, EMT training, study anatomy, pharmacology, learn to suture, to set bones, to treat infection, to deliver babies, to manage trauma, stock medical supplies. But understand, supplies run out. Knowledge persists. Books help, but practice is essential. You need muscle memory, need to have treated real injuries, made real decisions under pressure, because theoretical knowledge freezes in crisis, experience acts. For organized violence, this is harder, more controversial, but essential. Learn to fight fighting, not sport martial arts. Combatives, reality-based. So learn weapons, firearms, knives, improvised weapons, but more importantly, learn tactics, small unit tactics, how to move, how to secure, how to defend positions, how to work in teams, join groups, train together, build networks of capable people, because lone wolves die. Packs survive. But here's what you need to understand. These skills won't make you comfortable, won't make you rich, won't advance your career. In fact, in current society, they're often looked down on, seen as primitive, unsophisticated, lower class. The cognitive elite mock these skills. The educated dismiss them. The wealthy outsource them because these are working class skills. Manual, physical, practical, And our society values intellectual over physical, theoretical over practical, credentials over capability. But that hierarchy inverts and collapses. Suddenly, the philosophy professor is worthless. The financial analyst has no value. The marketing executive can't contribute because their skills require functioning institutions, require stable systems, require civilization. Strip that away and they're helpless, vulnerable, dependent on those they looked down on the farmer, the medic, the soldier, the people with skills that work regardless of circumstances. This is why every socialist revolution follows the same pattern. The intellectuals are killed first, the academics, the professionals, the bureaucrats, because they're useless in a new reality. They can't feed people, can't heal people, can't defend people. They're just mouths consuming resources without contributing value. So they're eliminated, and the workers, the ones with practical skills, they survive. They become the new elite until the society rebuilds. And the cycle repeats. Do you see the pattern? Do you understand what I'm telling you? The skills that make you successful in civilization ... are often the skills that kill you in collapse. And the skills that ensure survival in collapse are often undervalued in civilization. So you face a choice: optimize for now, or prepare for then success today, or survival tomorrow, comfort in stability, or capability in chaos. Most people choose comfort, choose current success, choose to remain vulnerable because they don't believe collapse will happen. Don't think it's possible. Don't imagine their comfortable civilization could ever fail. But history laughs at that assumption, because civilizations always fail. Systems always break. Order always dissolves into chaos. It's not if, it's when, and when it happens. The people who chose comfort ... die quickly. The people who chose capability ... survive. But there's a deeper truth here, a truth that makes these three skills even more valuable. They're not just survival skills. They're power skills, because in the aftermath of collapse, in the reconstruction, the people who controlled food, medicine, and security, they become the new elite. They're not elected, not appointed. They emerge through demonstrated value, through competence, through the ability to provide what people need, and they shape the new order, build the new systems, become the new power structure. Look at every post-collapse society, every reconstruction. The leaders aren't chosen democratically. They're the people who fed everyone, who healed everyone, who protected everyone. And those people dictate terms, make rules, establish hierarchies, because they have what others need. And need is leverage, and leverage is power. So these three skills, food production, medical knowledge, organized violence, they're not just about survival. They're about positioning, about being valuable in the new order, about ensuring that when civilization rebuilds, you're not at the bottom, you're at the top. Or at least ... high enough to matter. To have voice, to have agency, to have security. But here's the warning. The coming collapse will be different from historical ones, because technology has made us more dependent, more specialized, more vulnerable. The average person in Sarajevo in 1990 could still grow food, still had relatives who farmed, still had community connections. Today, most people don't know their neighbors, don't know how to grow anything, don't know how to do anything practical. They're completely dependent on systems, on supply chains, on infrastructure, and when those fail, they'll die faster than any historical population because they're softer, more helpless, more disconnected, and the collapse ... when it comes will happen faster because systems are interconnected now. A failure in one area cascades everywhere. Financial collapse triggers, supply chain breakdown triggers, food shortage triggers social unrest, triggers violence, triggers more collapse. it's exponential. And speed is lethality. Because fast collapse prevents adaptation, prevents learning, prevents adjustment. You either have the skills when it starts, or you die before you can acquire them. So the time to prepare ... is now, before the crisis, before the emergency, before the collapse, because these skills take years to develop, decades to master. You can't learn them in panic, can't acquire them in emergency, can't fake them under pressure. They require practice, repetition, experience, failure in safe conditions, so that when conditions aren't safe, you don't fail. If this has shaken you, if you're realizing that everything you thought made you successful might actually make you vulnerable, if you're understanding that capability matters more than credentials, then you need to see what we're covering next. Subscribe now, because the next episode reveals the locations where these skills will matter most, the places that will survive, and the places that will become mass graves. Geography is destiny, and choosing wrong is fatal. The 3 skills: food production, medical knowledge, organized violence. These aren't suggestions. These aren't interesting hobbies. These are survival requirements. And the people who master them will inherit whatever comes after collapse, will shape the new world, will be the new elite. Everyone else will be forgotten, will be buried in mass graves, will be footnotes in history. The people who had money but couldn't create value, who had education but no practical skills, who had credentials but no competence, they'll die quickly, brutally, forgotten. But you don't have to be them. You can choose differently, can start now, can develop these skills, can become capable instead of comfortable, can position yourself for survival instead of success, can prepare for collapse instead of hoping it doesn't come. The choice is yours. But time is limited. The systems are failing. The collapse is approaching. And when it arrives, the only thing that will matter is what you can actually do, not what, theoretically, not what credentials you have, not how much money you made. What can you actually do with your hands, with your knowledge, with your capability? Can you feed yourself? Can you heal yourself? Can you protect yourself? If not, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. But when the collapse comes, when the systems fail, when civilization breaks, ... you'll know. And by then, it'll be too late. The 3 skills, food, medicine, violence, master them or die without them. There is no middle ground, no compromise, no alternative. History has proven this over and over. The survivors ... are always the ones with these skills. The casualties ... are always the ones without. Which will you be?